Tired of bloating, fatigue and sluggish digestion? Meet your gut's new best friend, NutriHealth 365's microbiome supplement. Restore balance, boost immunity, and feel amazing from the inside out. Smart delayed release capsules, real results. Gut health just got personal.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Wednesday's episode of Trending, brought to you by NutriHealth 365. I hope you're well. I hope you're having a good week so far. Well, we're going to dive into the meeting or the state visit between the US and Saudi Arabia, which kind of has made the press in the last couple of days, or certainly the last few hours, I should say, because of this amazing meeting in the Oval Office between President Trump and Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Now, if you remember, during the first Trump presidency, there was the brutal assassination of a Saudi journalist called Jamal Khashoggi in the Saudi, not embassy, one smaller than an embassy, in the Saudi consulate, in Istanbul, Turkey, right? He went in to get some paperwork and never returned. His girlfriend sat outside waiting for him for a number of hours. There was lots of stories about the fact he'd been murdered in there. Then the Saudi consulate said, nope, he left absolutely fine. And then it came out a few days later that he had been murdered in there and actually chopped up while still alive with a bone saw. A number of Saudi military or intelligence types were arrested and have faced charges back in Saudi. But everyone knows that the ordering of this came from the very top of the Saudi regime. And it concluded, even American intelligence concluded, that Mohammed bin Salman would have been the one behind, or certainly the one that signed off on this assassination. So it's very ironic that just a few years later, when asked in the Oval Office about this was Trump's reaction to the Crown Prince being asked a pretty basic question about his actions. Have a watch of this.
Mr. President, for your family to be doing business in Saudi Arabia while you're president, is that a conflict of interest? And Your Royal Highness, the U.S. intelligence concluded that you orchestrated the brutal murder of a journalist. 9/11 families are furious that you are here in the Oval Office. Why should Americans trust you? And the same to you, Mr. President.
Now, who are you with?
I'm with ABC News, sir.
You're with who?
ABC News, sir.
Fake news. ABC fake news. One of the worst in the business. But I'll answer your question.
Thank you.
I have nothing to do with the family business. I have left, and when I've devoted 100% of my energy. What my family does is fine. They do business all over. They've done very little with Saudi Arabia, actually. I'm sure they could do a lot. And anything they've done has been very good. That's what we've done. We've built a tremendous business for a long time. I've been very successful. I decided to leave that success behind and make America very successful. And I've made America more successful by far than it ever was, and that it ever could have been, no matter who was president. There would be nobody bringing in $21 trillion, that I can tell you right now. As far as this gentleman is concerned, he's done a phenomenal job. You're mentioning somebody that was extremely controversial. A lot of people didn't like that gentleman that you're talking about. Whether you like him or didn't like him, things happen. But he knew nothing about it, and we can leave it at that. You don't have to embarrass our guest by asking a question like that.
It's okay, just ask Mr. President, if you allow me to answer. I feel painful about, the families of 9/11 in America, but, we have to focus on reality. Reality based on CIA documents and based on a lot of documents that Osama bin Laden used Saudi people in that event for one main purpose, is to destroy this relation, to destroy the American-Saudi relation. That's the purpose of 9/11. So whoever buying that means they are helping Osama bin Laden's purpose of destroying this relation. He knows that strong relation between America and Saudi Arabia, it's bad for extremism, it's bad for terrorism. And we have to approve him wrong and to build our relation, to continue developing our relation. It's critical in the safety of the world. It's critical against extremism and terrorism. About the journalists, it's really painful to hear, anyone that been losing his life for no real purpose or nothing illegal way, and it's been painful for us in Saudi Arabia. We've did all the right steps of investigation, etc. in Saudi Arabia, and we've improved our system to be sure that nothing happened like that, and it's painful and it's a huge mistake, and we are doing our best that this doesn't happen again.
Draining the swamp, eh? Anyone with an ounce of research knows that the Saudi regime are one of the most brutal, oppressive regimes in the world. It's one of the most oppressive countries in the world. As much as they will try and buy and sport wash and buy footballers and buy golf and buy the boxing, as much as they will do that, which is what they've done in the last few years, it is still one of the most oppressive, despicable regimes on earth. And it's interesting where he talks about 9/11 as well, because officially, if you believe the official story of 9/11, which I'm going to go out on a limb and say if you're watching this program, then you don't, then the Saudis were behind 9/11, and there was a lot of Saudi nationals involved in Mohammed Attar's team and in the Osama bin Laden orchestration of the plan. Obviously, anyone that's done 5 minutes of research knows that the Saudis were not involved in 9/11, certainly not in the capacity they have been accused of. It was definitely Israel and Mossad. You don't have to do much research to conclude that. And anyone that's watching this that thinks, I've not heard that before, then I urge you to go and take a look at so many parts of that story that just point the fingers in Israel and Mossad's direction. But the point to make here is, during this presidency, Trump has made it so obvious to anyone and everyone that he's not on the side of the American people, that he's not on the side of people in general. He's on the side of the cult. That's why no matter what he's done, it's been for the benefit of that cult. Even things that people are looking at going, oh, you know, he signed a peace deal in Gaza. Yeah, but does it benefit the people of Gaza? Does it benefit the Palestinians, or does it benefit the Israeli regime? Well, the answer is quite clear from stories we've covered in the last few weeks. So it's not really something that benefits the people. It's something that makes it look like you benefit the people. You can posture and stand there and say how great you are and how you're the peace president, X, Y, and Z. At the same time, you're defending and actually having a go at a journalist for asking a very legitimate question of the fact this man was clearly involved in the brutal murder of a journalist. So a journalist asking that question is a pretty fair point, because you're inviting the leader or de facto leader of a country that has murdered a journalist for saying things that this man did not like into another country. I think it's pretty fair for a journalist to ask that question. Now, this journalist was from ABC News, who will have their own agendas, of course, and ABC News are certainly not the bastions of genuine media. However, that was a very poignant and valid question. And Trump's arrogance is beginning to be his downfall. And you've only got to look at the public response in America to the way he stood up there and defended this man. It's not working for him anymore. I'm really pleased to say that finally people are starting to see what is obviously in front of their eyes. They're starting to stop looking at this and trying to justify 5D chess and play tons of mental gymnastics to justify why he's saying or doing certain things. They're starting to see it in the cold light of day that actually I've exhausted every possible explanation now, except the obvious one, which is that this guy is a total fraud. Because that's what he is. If you wanted to see it, you could have seen it in 2016. You certainly could have seen it in 2024. And I understand why so many didn't want to see it, because it's a lot easier to sit and believe that someone is coming to save the day. The hopium, as they call it. It is a lot easier to sit and believe that. But as the saying goes, ignorance is only bliss for a while. Because after a while, that ignorance, you start to realize, actually, this has got me in a worse position than if I just accepted and explored the possibility that maybe this guy isn't who I think he is. Maybe this guy isn't who I want him to be. And with Trump, it wasn't that difficult to figure that out if you were open-minded. And as I say, I'm not sitting here preaching, because I completely understand. You want to believe that someone is going to help. You want to believe that there is somebody in a position of authority who is on the side of the people, because the world seems a lot brighter if that's the case. But unfortunately, that isn't the case. In the political system, the way it is right now, there is no saviors coming. There isn't. as we always say on this program and on this channel, the savior has to start with the person in the mirror. It has to start by refusing to accept being treated in a certain way. It has to start with a revolution of your self-perception and your self-identity, rather than seeing yourself as a small minion that needs to be ruled over by somebody much smarter or more aristocratic than you. We're all born equal. We all have infinite consciousness. There's no one better than anybody else. It's a decision. It's a perception. Someone like Trump has a perception that he has the right to rule. He has the arrogance. He has the persona that I deserve to be in this position. And the crazy thing is, when people have that persona, generally that's their downfall, because arrogance will always eat their own in the end. And that's what we're seeing here. He's got too arrogant. He's got too confident that even his natural base now are starting to ask questions that 6 months ago they'd have hurled abuse at anyone who dared to. Now, all of a sudden, as I said, every other reasonable, rational explanation for why this is happening has been exhausted. Now, really, what should happen here is that the outrage across America for the way this man has acted over the years and the way he rules his country should put a lot of pressure on Trump. But like I say, I think his arrogance will be his downfall. And I actually think that essentially the dismantling of Trump and this hero complex that he has, or had, I should say, is actually happening on purpose. I think they want that to be destroyed, because I think they actually want to get rid of him before the end of his presidency, one way or another. Either through the back of the head or leaving via the back door through some kind of scandal. I don't believe that he will see out his presidency, and I might be completely wrong, and I may be way off here, and if I am, I'll hold my hands up and say I'm completely wrong, but I don't see him seeing out his presidency. I don't. I think there's too many things that are on the back burner that could come to fruition or come to the forefront at any time that could bring him down. His cognitive ability is clearly declining. You can see that. His bullish arrogance is clearly out of control, and that's before you even look at other scandals, the biggest one involving Epstein and the files, obviously. But you're seeing him essentially dismantle the whole concept of what was MAGA, and I see that as a good thing, because when people have been sold something that they believe, when people buy into a concept and they are let down, as they are and have been and are being, they're angry. And there's a difference between being disappointed, disengaged, and a bit, what's the point? And there's a big difference between that and, you know what, I'm angry that I've been lied to and I'm not accepting it. That mentality is now going, okay, so what now? What now? That's not worked. No more saviors, no more BS, no more system saviors, no more someone coming out telling me they're going to do everything I need. I've got to do it myself now. Where do we start? And I think if that attitude is what, organically is birthed out of what was MAGA, then that's exciting, because people were ready to stand up and do something. We can make some changes here. We've got some big opportunities. Because that the system isn't going to do it for you. There's not a political savior coming. So once you can essentially tick that box off in your mind and accept that isn't how this is going to change, and it's going to have to start with you and with us and collectively everybody, and all of a sudden then, right, let's make it happen. If that's the mentality that comes out of this, then that's incredibly exciting. And that's what I hope. My fear is that people will just become so disengaged and disappear back into their own lives to the point that they just kind of, I can't be bothered again. Whatever happens, happens. I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think it's going to be the first one, because I think people are, for the first time, ready to stand up for what needs to be done. Because we were saying this yesterday, that nobody basically now is having a good time. It's not a case of a certain group of thriving, a certain group of suffering. Pretty much nobody is having a good time unless you're in a very, very small percentage at the top. So one, that should create some unity, that whether we agree or disagree on the symptoms or the solutions, we can all agree that we're all being screwed. And also, people have got a lot less to lose. When you're being screwed anyway, standing up for what is right, what have you got to lose at that point? Because it's not like you're going, I could lose my house, could lose this, could lose that. If this goes on, you're going to lose that anyway. So all of a sudden, the standing up for what is right doesn't just feel like what is right. It feels like it's the only solution. And that's what I hope comes out of this whole movement. I really, really do. And I think it will. I really think it will. But, that video I showed you at the top, it's clear to see that I don't think this guy cares anymore. I don't think this guy cares whatsoever anymore about how he's perceived. And I understand that, because he's in his last term. He's not got to win an election again. He can fully put himself at the mercy of the cult without ever having to face a ballot box. So that's why he's doing it. When I say I understand, I'm not condoning it. I'm saying that's why he's doing it. That's why in his first presidency, that's why in most first presidencies, what happens generally is less intense than what happens in the second one, because in the second one, they've not got to face a third election. But somebody has, and I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens over the next few months, because there's so many things on the back burner that could bring him down, as I say, as well as this absolutely bullish, pathetic, arrogant attitude that we're seeing towards the media, towards any questions, towards everyone and anyone. And I think it's actually disgraceful if anyone defends what he's doing here. A journalist was brutally murdered, like I say, chopped up with a bone saw, while still alive, certain accounts say. That was then denied. His own intelligence service, which I don't obviously trust the CIA, but his own intelligence service concluded that Mohammed bin Salman signed off on this killing or orchestrated it or initiated it, any one of those three. And he's standing here saying, you're offending our guest. Why are you trying to embarrass our guest? Because your guest's a brutal murderer, mate. That's why. Pathetic. Anyway, if you're watching with us on YouTube, thank you. If you're watching with us on Twitter, thank you. We're going to head over to iconic.com and cover another couple of stories. We're going to talk about the Epstein files, which have apparently been voted to be released, but Trump can still veto it. Normal. And we're going to talk about AI and this potential bubble of AI bursting, as a Google executive is saying. So if you click the link in the description below, head over to iconic.com and I'll see you there.